Well, joining us on the Western Hotline and covering the event, former morning show intern Kevin Prise joins us in the Western Hotline. He's down at Ponte Vedra Beach, if I remember correctly. Kevin, is that right? Ponte Vedra Beach?
Absolutely, Ponte Vedra Beach. Good morning, guys. Thanks for having me. How are you?
Yeah, we're good.
Morning.
We're good.
Yeah.
You were there on scene. Were you at 17 when Djokovic hit that hole in one?
No, I wasn't there. I was inside writing a different column, actually on a guy from Syracuse, Kevin Roy, which warmed the heart to be able to do. But no, you could almost hear from the media center, which is a few hundred yards away. And it's cool because this was the first ace in the history of the caddy competition, which has been around for 26 years. And it's one of the most fun things. I actually have been able to hit a couple shots in past years. A couple of players have brought me out, which has been super cool. But no holes in one until that, and you could hear it was just amazing seeing how excited they were. And like you said, Morikawa was probably happier than his caddy, JJ. And JJ used to play competitive golf. He was a two-time Division II individual champion, so definitely plenty of game. But still, obviously, to do that, it's insane.
So Kevin is there covering the event. Kevin, you've been all around, covered the PGA Tour for years, and, you know, whether we're visiting with you at Oak Hill or getting a check-in wherever it goes, where do you rank Sawgrass on all the places that you're able to go? I mean, you're all over tour with this, traveling just about everywhere. So how high on the list is Sawgrass for you?
I'm definitely biased because I live here, and I get to play it in the summer, June, July, August. They let us play, which is amazing, and it's my favorite course on tour. Just the combination of the shot values and how much the players love it, and all the history here, and just the 16, 17, 18 finish is definitely so iconic, and 17 just stands alone. But just all throughout the course, whether it's hole 6, they just put in a new tree, so guys have to think about hitting like a low punch driver, and you have holes that like you have to fade your tee shot and then draw your second shot, and you can't. All the players say like it's the perfect execution test in the sense of professional golf. You have to prove that you can hit different types of shots, and combining that with the history and just the look and the fan experience. And I have friends from home that love coming down, and one friend that has come, I think, like 5 or 6 times just because he loves it so much. And the combination of the challenge and the fan experience and the vibe makes it my favorite on tour. And obviously it's hard to compare with most of the majors rotate around, so there's not like one singular venue. And then other than the Masters, it's the biggest tournament we have that you go back to every year. So I just love it. Absolutely love it.
So are you team, you're good with the tree that they put back in there on hole 6 that everyone's got to like run their ball under?
I love it. I mean, I hit the ball low anyway, so I wouldn't need to adjust my tee shots too much. But for the pros, it was funny because Davis Love III, a 2-time Players champion, he was talking about how he would always tell the commissioners and people at the tour to remove the tree, and they never listened, and eventually they removed it, and now he was part of the redesign or the restoration to bring the tree back, so it all came full circle. But just anything that can cause the players to think, and I mean, so much on tour these days, the setups can be pretty vanilla in the sense of you can just hit driver everywhere, and there's not really too much trouble, and if you're close enough to the green, the guys will just take their chances with the wedge. So to have anything in the way off the tee to think about, which just so many holes, I mean, I just go down. Stuff comes into play on 7, comes into play on the second shot on 9. It's just again and again you have to think about trees throughout the course. So 6 is a perfect illustration of that.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, I'm thinking if we want to get really deep on course design and the mental side of the game, to me, Kevin, 6 is almost like a perfect pair with 17, where 17 is not a 200-yard par 3. It's not 230. We see those on tour sometimes. It's a very hittable shot, but the shot before you take it is in your head. And like 6 would be that too. Yeah. I read that nobody's ever hit the tree, but it's still there. Like it's just the mental side of standing on that tee box and thinking like, all right, it kind of gets to the point about execution there. And 17 is very similar as well. That might be a small green to hit, and some guys hit it but don't hold it. But again, like I really think so much of that is about what goes on between the ears on that hole.
17, oh, totally. And like you said, with 17, that's a shot where if there's no water, it's not anything. It's a nondescript hole. It's probably playing to a 2.6 scoring average, probably one of the easiest holes on tour. But you get that water and you get a little wind and you're worried about chunking it or sculling it, and it just messes with your mind. And every year you see a couple guys fall victim to that hole, even in the toughest conditions. And then on hole 6, I bet you someone's going to hit the tree this year. Yeah. I don't know. I just feel like, in this day and age, equipment, obviously it's so much better, but I think of Aldrich Pocketer, this young 20-year-old who hits it so far, and he just topped the ball into the water at Bay Hill last week. And Scheffler isn't immune to the shank from time to time, and I think someone will hit it, and it'll be great. It's good entertainment, but I think just having that, no matter what it is. I mean, I go back to, Bobolink, where I grew up playing, and number 16 is like this 100-yard par 3, but there's a tree that gets in on the right side, so you have to worry. And in my mind, it's almost like I have to cut a sand wedge. It's funny, my mind just went right there. But no, anything with those elements, it's just a great little twist in golf.
You're making me almost mad thinking about the tree at 16 on Bobolinks. If you know, you know. Unless you're a lefty. If you're a lefty, then you're perfect. You don't have to deal with it. Oh,
it's the worst. 100 yards, and I feel like I hit that tree like every third time I play it.
Yep.
And I've played that course 1,000 times. I grew up right down the street.
Too.
That's my home course. Yep.
Listen, those of us that spend time at the links at Skidjackwooda Meadows, Delaware Country Club, we know how to hit over trees. There's a couple holes, number 2, number 3.
This isn't though
18.
This isn't.
18's got a big tree in the middle of the fairway.
See, this is more like the one you're talking about, like Delaware, where there's a tree in front of the green. You have a lot of space to hit it over.
Yeah.
This is kind of like the tree here, where you have to think about it off the tee box. It's because it's only 10 yards in front of you, but it's hanging over, so you've got to you have to hit a fade or you have to hit a low shot, which we're not the guys on the Players Championship. But anyways,
it's not often you get to have this. This is an honor for me to have this hole 16 at Bobolink versus hole 6 at Players Parallel. It's just incredible. No, and I'm going to go out to 6 today for sure and take a look at it. And if someone hits the tree, I will report back for sure.
Very good. Kevin, I want to ask you a question about the field. Who is on the clock? And by that I mean, I'm thinking about Ludwig Oberg winning the Genesis as this guy's really good, he should win by now, and then he gets that's his biggest win. This is not a major, so the majors, the conversation is elevated a bit. But is there any name you're thinking, it's time for insert name here. He's been good enough, he's knocking on the door, getting a win here would make him more of a household name than he is right now?
It's an interesting question, and there's different levels to it because, Hovland hasn't won a big tournament, but he's pretty much a household name, so he wouldn't be in that category. And then you go down to a guy like Cameron Young, who has a ton of runner-up finishes. He's never won a tour event, but he has a ton of power. He's got a great game where he can really overpower courses and get on a roll if he can kind of get over that hump of getting a win and the floodgates could open. So, yeah, and he's someone who I think if he were to win the Players, he could have a lot of upside. And then recency bias, but a guy like Russell Henley, who won last week at Bay Hill to move to number 7 in the world. I guess I'll stick on Henley for this question as I was thinking out loud because he's in his mid-30s, but one of the cool things about golf is you can peak at any really era. You see guys, Vijay Singh peaked around 40, and Henley isn't someone who overpowers the course at all. He's one of the shortest hitters, but he's just so accurate, kind of like a modern-day Fred Funk in a way, but a little longer and probably a little better. Fred Funk, who won the Players 20 years ago, and I think if Henley were to win this week, which I think he could have a chance to get on that next level of names where people start to talk about him and know about him. But it's such a good question because you think of Tony Finau, another guy who's been knocking on the door. Not that he's been playing so well lately. That's such a great question because there's so many guys. Sepp Straka even, who's played in the Ryder Cup for Europe, and he's had a few wins, but he's not. It's actually a good. I think that's my best answer yet. I just got off. That's such a good question. But he leads the Cup, and people don't really know who he is. He's pretty anonymous. But if he wins this, he could take that leap.
Running through the names, I'm just going through the favorites. Thinking about guys like Justin Thomas, who kind of lost his game and appears to be a little bit back. A win would kind of put a stamp on that for him. Or, up and down the board, just Wyndham Clark. Guys that are there's guys that haven't won, and then there's guys that maybe want to start the year on a good note because this is we had the Genesis, we've had a couple of big events, but long referred to as the 5th major for guys that are looking to whatever, go down in history. You can make it about Rory and his drought. You can make it about Scheffler and his early season dominance. Do you get the sense that players treat this not only like an elevated event and fifth major in finger quotes there, but also as like the Daytona 500 almost? Like, here it is. Let's have a good year.
Absolutely, and you hit the nail on the head. Like, it's funny, there's always a lot of chatter, and, we're guilty of this at the tour of, like, trying to market the players as the gold standard and the flagship event and all this stuff, and, we can go overblown at times, but in reality, just the history of it, and with golf being so history-based and being able to compare and thinking of Tiger winning in 2001 and better than most, and Hal Sutton and Be the Right Club today, even back to Jack Nicklaus winning 3 times, like, it's an event that kind of is a good comparative tool across history. So players feel that. They know this is a tournament that when they look back at their career, it's not a major, but it's, the next best thing in terms of individual win, and one that, if you win the Players, it's on that kind of top of your resume, right up there, just a bit below the majors. And it's one where if you win, you can really springboard the year, a.k.a. Scotty Scheffler last year, who won here and then won the Masters, won Olympic gold, had one of the best seasons in, non-Tiger, really, of the modern era. So it can really get you going.
I'll throw Tommy Fleetwood's hat in the ring for this, because he still does not have a PGA Tour win. And what's he got, like 7? I think he's got 7 major top 5s in his career, and he's finished top 5 in the Players.
I was asking players yesterday. I was just doing something for a story that I haven't written, but I might, on like what players think, who they think's the best player without a PGA Tour win. And too many people were saying Fleetwood that I had to change the question mid interviews to say who's the best that you've played with, just to get some other names, because Fleetwood, he's to a man. People see him as the best player without a win. It's kind of crazy he hasn't won. I mean, a couple years ago at the Canadian Open, Nick Taylor made a 70-footer in a playoff to beat him. He's done everything he could but win, and with all the major contention too, it's just kind of wild he hasn't won on tour. And he's someone who, if he won this week, that would, like you said, another guy that would bolster his star power significantly.
Kevin Prise, how's the forecast look for the week? Are we in the clear?
We should be good. You never know for sure. I think March is interesting because we moved back to March for this tournament a few years ago, and I think it plays better in March. It just can get a little too soft in May, and the grass is different and not as complex to hit out of just with the overseed. But I think now you can get some nasty lies, which is always fun. And it rained earlier in the week, but it's pretty dry now. The course just dries out so well, and I think it might get a little dicey on Sunday, but I'm hoping that's wrong. It's not a sure thing, but it's looking good. We're in for a great week of weather. It's beautiful today. It's low 60s right now, but Sunday could be a little dodgy. But knock on wood, hopefully we'll be good.
Very good. Well, Kevin, thanks for the time. Enjoy the tournament, and we'll talk again later in the golf season.
Love it. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Orchard Park native and former morning show intern down there at TPC Sawgrass for the Players.